Development of professional self. Communication is an important aspect of human behavior. It stands for natural activity of all human beings to convey opinions, feelings, information, and ideas to others through words, written or spoken, body language, or signs. Communication is an integral part of life. A professional should be aware of professional values and ethics. He should also learn to deal with value conflicts, and ethical dilemmas. A professional should have deep knowledge of his work and should possess all the skills required to perform well in this job. Creativity is an important part of professional personality. And an essential ingredient of organizational growth. Without creativity, organizations would be non-dynamic entities and employees would stagnate into nothingness. Professional personality. Personality of a person with regard to his profession. Creativity. Originality in ideas. An original idea is considered to be the one that is never occurred before. Professional personality means personality of a person with regard to his profession. All the professionals and employees working in an organization are expected to follow the values of the organization they are a part of. Values set an organization apart from other organizations by clarifying its identity and serving as a rallying point for its employees. Some of the types of organizational values are core values, aspirational values, permission to play values, and accidental values. Core values should be integrated into all employee-related processes like hiring methods, performance management systems, criteria for promotions and rewards, as well as dismissal policies. Many a times, professionals face conflicts between their personal and professional values. Ethics is one of the most difficult concepts to define. It is as intangible as asserting the idea of morality or right and wrong. Employees should be provided mentors who can help them resolve two ethical dilemmas. Values are at the core of personality and are a powerful force affecting behavior. Attitudes have four basic characteristics: direction, intensity, salience, and differentiation. Three major components of attitudes are evaluative component, cognitive component, and behavioral component. It is assumed that the relationship between the attitude of a person and his behavior is causal in nature, meaning that the attitudes that people hold determine their behavior and what they do. While some attitudes are adopted early in life from our family values or cultural environment, most are developed gradually over time through experiences and observations. Creativity and critical thinking are essential in making effective and unique decisions. Creative process involves preparation, incubation, persistence, insight, and verification. Organizations interested in maintaining and enhancing creativity recognize that excessive disciplines, excessive rigidity in structure, and too much control inhibit creativity. Actions that we tend to repeat regularly and unconsciously can be termed as habits. Every professional needs to have good works if he wishes to succeed in life. Professionals need some skills to succeed in their field. Some of these skills are presentation skills, communication skills, social skills, and time management. A number of times, professionals are good at their work, but they find it difficult to work in a team. Personnel should be a good team player and should be able to contribute well to his team. Number 2. D. George has defined ethics as a theory or morality which attempts to systematize moral judgments and establish and defend basic moral principles. Number 3. The word value is derived from a French word valoir, which means the word merit, usefulness, or importance of a thing. The three major components of attitudes are evaluative component, behavioral component, and cognitive component. It is assumed that the relationship between the attitude of a person and his behavior is causal in nature, meaning that the attitudes that people hold determine their behavior and what they do. Logic also suggests such a relationship. Creativity means originality in ideas. An original idea is considered to be the one that has never occurred before. Concept of professional personality. Personality is considered to be a set of characteristics that are stable and do not change, either over a period of time or from situation to situation. These characteristics account for a consistent pattern of behavior in a person. Similarly, professional personality is defined as personality of a person with regard to his or her profession. Organizations classify professional personality into two categories for the selection of employees as well as for their training. These categories are Type A and Type B. Professionals with Type A personality are generally restless, impatient, and have a desire to achieve goals quickly. Professionals with Type B personality are easygoing, relaxed about time pressures, less competitive, and more philosophical in nature. Type A, restless, impatient, desire to achieve goals quickly. Type B, easygoing, less competitive, philosophical in nature. There are many factors that contribute to the formation of personality. These factors can be classified into two broad categories. One category consists of factors related to hereditary, and second category comprises environmental factors. The hereditary factors are found in a person based on his genes. The environmental factors include the influences of culture, family, social interaction, and atmosphere of the organization. Personality of a professional may manifest itself in various forms. Some professionals may be rigid in nature, thus they adhere rigidity to environmental values of the organization. A bureaucratic professional respects authority based on his respect for organizational rules, regulations, and order. His respect for authority is not total and blind. There is Machiavellian professional personality as well. Professionals who fall under this category believe in manipulating others for their own gains as well as for keeping control over others. Another professional personality form is highly objective, meticulous, and detail-oriented. These professionals are calculating, logical, and analytical when responding to various situations. Since personality attributes are comparatively stable and some knowledge about these attributes helps in predictability of behavior, some theories have been developed to identify such attributes in order to group people into various categories. Psychoanalytical theory based upon Freudian concept of personality is founded on unconscious framework of id, ego, and superego. Id is the unconscious animalistic urge to seek personal gains at any cost, and ego and superego keep it in check through social and moral values. Depending upon the strength of ego and superego, organizations can identify the personality traits of professionals who work with them. There is a trait theory of personality as well. It describes people on the basis of traits such as aggressive, flexible, humorous, sensitive, sentimental, impulsive, and so on. By observing some of these traits, organizations can identify personality of professionals. The third theory of personality is known as self-concept theory, that promotes the idea that a person's behavior reflects his own image about himself. Finally, there is a social learning theory that is based on the premise that personality development is more a result of social variables than biological drives or unconscious desires. Personality is a sum total of all that a person has learned. Thus, learning process can be manipulated to develop or change a personality. Keeping this theory in mind, organizations train professionals so that they can help the organization in achieving its goals. Attributes of professional personality. Some of the attributes of professional personality are as follows. First, understanding the culture of the organization. One of the primary traits of a professional personality is that the person should be able to understand and follow the culture of the organization he is a part of. If a person fails to follow the culture of his organization, he would never be able to adjust himself there, even though he might be extremely good at his work. Thus, when a person joins an organization, he should make efforts to understand the culture of the organization by talking to his seniors. Next, knowledge and skills of a profession. A professional should have deep knowledge of his work and should possess all the skills required to perform well in his job. He should continuously make effort to enhance his knowledge and skills. For instance, if a person wishes to become a teacher, knowledge of the subject he wishes to teach is not enough. He should be aware of the psychology of the children and should know how to maintain interest of the children in class. He should be able to hold attention of his students by using creative activities. Next, commitment of self-improvement. Many professionals complain that they find their work monotonous. After spending a few years in a profession, they do not feel as enthusiastic to do their work as they used to feel when they started it. It is because they do not try to improve their skills and knowledge related to their profession and start doing their work mechanically. If a person continues to improve his skills and update his knowledge, it is unlikely that he would feel bored doing the same work repeatedly. Secondly, a professional should be open to the feedback of his seniors so that he can improve himself. He should not take feedback as personal attack and should use feedback to improve himself. Pride in the profession. A professional should be proud of the work he does. If a person is not proud of his work and take up a profession only to earn money, he would not be able to sustain himself for long. And if he is able to sustain himself, he would feel like a mechanical machine which produces work. As a result, he would not feel motivated to grow in his field. Team spirit. A number of times professionals are good at their work, but they find it difficult to work in a team. A professional should be a good team player and should be able to contribute well to his team. Next, isolating the personal life from the professional. A person should not mix his personal and professional life. A person who allows his personal problems to affect his professional life is not considered a good professional. A professional should learn how to keep his personal life away from his professional life and vice versa. Qualities and traits of professional personality. Not all professionals are successful. Those who are successful have certain qualities and traits which help them become successful in their profession. Some of the important qualities and traits of professional personality are: first, Decisiveness. Decision making involves more than simply choosing the best alternative. The skill to recognize and define problem and, if possible, to anticipate problems before they get out of hand is equally important and desirable. While making right decision is important, to make the decision at the right time is equally important for the success of a professional. Professionals miss a number of opportunities because of indecisiveness. Thus, they should possess conceptual logical ability, intuitive and courageous judgment, and ability to analyze the problem quickly for being successful in their fields. Next, ability to handle conflict. Professionals need to become They should be able to handle conflicts and criticism in a constructive manner. For this, it is important for a professional to be confident and knowledgeable. He should have the ability to handle stress, as conflicts generally lead to stress and tension. This requires a sound mind in a sound body. Good physical health generally leads to stability and balanced outlook. Next, emotional stability. Emotional stability is important for effective decision making. It refers to calculated reaction of a professional to undesirable situations and obstacles, and normal acceptance of success as well as failure. Emotional instability often leads to wrong and impulsive decisions. Thus, this quality should be developed by professionals to succeed in their field. Next, creativity. It is an essential quality of a professional as makes a professional dynamic in approach. Without creativity, a professional would stagnate into nothingness. Thus, all professionals should develop this trait for their professional development. Next, self-motivation. Motivation is a dynamic force that sets a person into motion and action. Motivation in a person is directed by a goal. Thus, once a goal is achieved, a higher goal is set and efforts are made towards achieving that goal. Some professionals rely on appreciation to get motivated. However, self-motivated professionals do not rely on others' appreciation and find ways to motivate themselves. Interpersonal skills. Interpersonal skills is the ability to work with other people amicably. It involves patience, trust, and genuine involvement in interpersonal relationships. When professionals work in an organization, it becomes important for them to have good interpersonal relationships so that they can work with one another amicably. Professional values and value conflict. All the professionals and employees working in an organization are expected to follow the values of the organization they are part of. Values set an organization apart from other organizations by clarifying its identity and serving as a rallying point for its employees. An organization contemplating to adopt a set of values must first come to terms with the fact that values inflict pain when properly practiced. They limit the strategic and operational freedom of an organization and constrain the behavior of employees. An organization should not adopt a set of values if it is not willing to the pain values incur. Types of values. Organizational values can be organized into four categories. A. Core values. These values are the deeply ingrained principles that guide all the actions of an organization. They are inherent and sacrosanct. They cannot be compromised, either for convenience or for economic gain. They often reflect the values of the founders of an organization. They are the source of distinctiveness of an organization and must be maintained at all costs. B. Aspirational values. These are the values that an organization needs to succeed in the future. For example, An organization may need to develop a new set of values to support a new strategy. Aspirational values need to be carefully managed so that they do not dilute the core values. For example, the core values of an organization were hard work and dedication. Its employees worked late into the evenings and even on weekends. The management wanted to introduce work-life balance but decided against it because doing so would have confused the employees so as to what mattered most to the company. C. Permission to play values. These values are the minimum behavioral and social standards that are required from the employees. They do not vary much across organizations, particularly those working in the same region or industry. Therefore, permission to play values do not help in distinguishing an organization from others. For example, an organization claimed that integrity was one of its core values because it refused to hire people who misrepresented themselves on their resumes or who provided inaccurate information about the experience of previous employment. But integrity could not have been a core value of the organization because most organizations have similar policies. Unless the organization was willing to adopt unusually tough measures to demonstrate that it held a higher standard of integrity than most companies, it should classify integrity as a permission to play value and not a core value. D. Accidental values. Accidental values arise spontaneously without being cultivated by leadership and take hold over time. These values reflect the common interests or personalities of the employees of an organization. Accidental values can be good for an organization, such as when they create an atmosphere of inclusiveness, but they can act as negative forces foreclosing new opportunities. It is important to distinguish core values from accidental values. For example, earlier employees of an organization were single adults who partied on weekends. The company was accidentally imbued with the values of these employees, trendy and youthful. Senior managers realized that the company would not be adequately staffed if only young and trendy people were hired. They even realized that older, married people who could make great contributions might be inadvertently overlooked. Senior managers tried to make the employees understand that hiring only trendy people had nothing to do with the core values of trust, action, and ownership, and that even untrendy people could be recruited if they shared the core values of the organization. Next, all pervasive values. Core values should be integrated into all employee-related processes like hiring methods, performance management systems, criteria for promotions and rewards, as well as dismissal policies. From the first interview to the last day of work, employees should be constantly reminded that core values form the basis of every decision the organization makes. For example, an organization has created a strong culture around dependability, dedication, and self-motivation by integrating these core values into every system that affects employees. Job candidates from receptionists to vice presidents are screened not only for their skills and experiences but also how they fit into the values of an organization. To test the self-motivation and dedication of the candidates, interviewers ask them to describe something they have accomplished that other people thought would be impossible. After employees join the organization, they are reminded repeatedly that the values of the company are more than just words. Next topic, value conflicts. Many times professionals face conflicts between their personal and professional values. They face situations in which they are not able to decide whether they should abide by their personal values or professional values. For instance, a social worker might want to help her client with her health problems, but might face a conflict within herself because the guidelines of her agency do not allow her to do so. Another professional might face conflict between respecting the privacy of his client and his official work. In such situations, a person needs to analyze the values which he feels are at stake. Then he should find the rationale and implications of the values in his decision. Thinking about the values conflicts in this perspective helps the professional make an informed decision. However, if he is still not able to solve that conflict, he should talk to one of his seniors who he feels would understand his conflict and help him find its solution. Personal ethics and ethical dilemmas. The core values of an organization help it to exercise ethical judgment. Not all the organizations follow all their ethics properly, but some organizations do a great deal to make sure that their employees follow their ethics to the core. Ethics is probably the most difficult concept to define. It is as intangible as assessing the idea of morality or right and wrong. It may have some facets that are universal in nature, but much of it may be defined with reference to the values established by a particular society. For example, artificial birth control techniques may be a taboo in some societies and may be mandatory in Russia and China. Ethical conduct is not easy to understand. George has defined ethics as a theory or morality which attempts to systematize moral judgments and establish and defend basic moral principles. As this definition suggests, the moral principles and moral judgments are also subjective in nature and depend much upon the value system of the individual. While it is difficult to draw specific guidelines that would categorize ethical and non-ethical conduct, some general guidelines can be established that would define ethics through accepted norms of the society. As far as professional ethics are concerned, the concept of right and wrong, fair and unfair, just and unjust is reflected either by the organizational policies or by the social reactions. Code of conduct of an organization must be explicit if it is to serve as a useful guideline to employees in ethically ambivalent situations, but it must also leave room for employees to use their judgment in some critical situations. It is very important to strike the appropriate balance between providing clear directions and leaving room for individual judgment. Further, senior managers of an organization should often refer to the core values and code of conduct of their organization. If senior managers are ethical in their conduct, employees would also follow suit. Next, ethical dilemmas. If a person follows all the ethics of his organization, he can prevent the occurrence of ethical problems, but he might still face some ethical dilemmas. Employees view moral and ethical dilemmas as something they do not have to deal with on a regular basis. They do not feel morally ambivalent, but they are scared of these issues because they do not deal with such issues in their work on a regular basis. They feel that these moral and ethical dilemmas expose a personal part of themselves. Therefore, they try to put the problem aside or behind them and get back to their real work. They choose paths that present the least friction. Ethical dilemmas are more acute for employees who define their jobs narrowly, such as meeting a sales target or closing a deal. Managers who define their jobs in broader terms, such as delivering value to their customers, or building a sustainable company can deal with ethical dilemmas more effectively. The ethical dilemmas become just another part of their job profile because the broader scope of their jobs encompasses various kinds of decisions and concerns. Therefore, employees with broader job profiles are less likely to against wrongdoings of an organization. It is not enough that employees have the right values in place. They should also be practicing those values. Managers have to help employees get over their mental hurdles in dealing with ethical questions. It is not enough that managers act ethically themselves. They also have to insist that it is important for employees to resolve ethical and moral dilemmas correctly. Employees should be provided mentors who can help them resolve tough ethical dilemmas. Managers should encourage coalition building among like-minded colleagues. We should give them confidence to take a stand on an ethical issue. Values. The word value is derived from French word valeur, which means the worth, merit, usefulness, and importance of a thing. Value concept is relative and not absolute. An individual's attitudes are based on his personal value system. A value is a belief on which a man acts by preference. It may be described as a prescriptive belief, and thus ethical values may be defined as prescriptive beliefs in order to define the difference between right and wrong. Values may be defined as rule-based beliefs that are generally based on rules. The other name that can be given is that of deontological beliefs. Values may also be based on perceptions or expected outcomes and are called as theological beliefs. Number 1. Values are at the core of personality and are a powerful force affecting behavior. Number 2. A judgmental element is generally involved in the values as they are used by an individual to find out what is right and what is wrong. 3. Both content and intensity are the attributes of value. The content attribute refers to the importance of mode of conduct of existence, and the intensity attribute indicates or defines the degree of its importance. Number 4. Values are not fixed, they change over time. 5. Many values are relatively stable and enduring. This is because of the way in which they are originally learned. For example, stealing is considered wrong. Number 6. We have a hierarchy of values that form our value system, but everyone does not hold the same values. Next, managing individual differences in values. Achieving the desired fit between the person and the job is not always easy. It requires special attention and constant effort on the part of managers. While administering sound human resource practices, managers must pay attention to individual differences in employees. To develop strong and desired values among employees, the following things need to be looked into carefully. First, clarify and communicate. Managers must explicitly state and clarify values respected by the organizations. This can be achieved through formal orientation programs. Every attempt should be made to expose new employees to the correct values and expectations and to teach them the way we do things here. Next is train and develop. To improve skills of employees, managers must focus on training and development continually. Values can and should be emphasized along with other important individual attitudes. Next, reward and reinforce. Rewards can reinforce individual values and maintain enthusiasm in support of key organizational values. Creative managers can find many ways to reward people for displaying the values that are considered essential to organizational success. Next, work ethic. Work ethic refers to the value of work in one's life. Most people consider work as a form of worshipping God and a service to humanity. Work viewed this way is broader than job involvement and organizational commitment. There are three motives behind a belief in the work ethics. Instrumental value. Next is instrumental value. Work is instrumental in achieving other virtues such as self-discipline, personal happiness, organizational growth, rational productivity, etc. Work is good because of its contribution to society. Next, terminal value. Dedicated work is a mark of good character. It is a desirable activity in and of itself. We ought to be diligent and industrious. Self-worth. Next is self-worth. Sincere and honest work builds up self-esteem. A worker develops feelings of self-confidence and mastery by successfully accomplishing a task. Work ethic is influenced by childhood experiences and the expectations of others in life. Children who are brought up in homes by parents who emphasize discipline and obedience tend to have stronger work values and display great social responsibility. Attitudes. If you ask someone how are you, his response would depend upon his attitude towards life. If his attitude towards life is positive, he will say he feels very good and thank God for what he has. If his attitude towards life is negative, he will start complaining about everything that is wrong with the world. Similarly, if you ask someone about his job, you will find him to be very opinionated. He might say he likes his job very much, or he might complain about the job bitterly. This would be a function of his attitude towards his job. Attitude is a collection of the type of personality, feelings towards the outside world, confidence within self, and more. Next, characteristics and components of attitude. Attitudes have four basic characteristics: direction, intensity, salience, and differentiation. The direction of an attitude is favorable, unfavorable, or neutral. We may like, dislike, or be neutral in our views about a person, a job, or a situation. The intensity of the attitude refers to the strength of the affective component. For example, we may dislike a person, but the extent of our disliking would determine the intensity of our attitude towards him. Such dislike may range from weak to strong. In general, the more intense the attitude, the more persistent will be such behavior. Salience refers to the perceived importance of the attitude. Some people may not like to work with computers as they may not perceive it to be as important as a student in computer information systems for whom the knowledge of computers is mandatory for a career. Finally, attitudes can be high or low in differentiation depending upon how strong the supporting beliefs and values of the person are. The attitudes, irrespective of what they are, generally consist of three major components. These are: number 1, evaluative component. The evaluative component of attitude is a function of how we feel about something. It refers to our liking or disliking for a particular person, event, or situation. Such person, event, or situation becomes the focus of our attitude and is known as attitude object. For example, You may feel positively or negatively about your boss, your friend, the movie you have seen, or anything you happen to see. Number 2. Cognitive component. Feelings, however, do not simply and automatically develop. Most often, they are based on knowledge. For example, if you know that your friend is talking ill about you behind your back, such knowledge would result in negative attitude towards your friend. Similarly, you might believe that your supervisor does not know much about the job. This belief is based upon your knowledge of how the supervisor is handling the job. These beliefs, which may or may not be justified, comprises the cognitive component of attitude. Number 3. Behavioral component. What you believe about something and how you feel about it would determine your behavior regarding that particular person, event, or situation. For example, if you believe that your boss is embezzling the funds of the organization and you feel negatively about it, you are likely to behave with little respect for such a boss. You may either inform his superiors about it, or you may want to look for another job. Such predisposition to act in a certain way contributes the behavioral component of the attitude. Such a predisposition may not actually predict your behavior. For example, if your boss is embezzling the funds of your organization, you may take some steps, or you might simply ignore it by convincing yourself that it does not directly concern you. In other words, your intention to behave in a certain way dictates how you actually do. Based upon these components, attitudes can be defined as relatively stable clusters of feelings, beliefs, and behavioral predispositions. By including the words relatively stable, we are referring to something that is not permanent nor fleeting. In other words, once attitudes are formed, they tend to persist and can only be sensed by strong outside or inside forces. For example, your attitude towards someone may be negative but may change if situations or circumstances change. Attitude and behavior. It is assumed that the relationship between the attitude of a person and his behavior is causal in nature, meaning that the attitudes that people hold determine their behavior and what they do. Logic also suggests such a relationship. For example, people watch television programs that they like. That is, their attitude about such program is positive. Research conducted in the late 60s concluded that the relationship between attitude and behavior is, at best, minimal. More recent studies have indicated that there is indeed a measurable relationship if moderating contingency variables are taken into consideration. The moderating variables which have been found to be most powerful include: first, importance of the attitude. Next, specificity of the attitude. Next, accessibility of the attitude. Additionally, they have been also linked to existence of any social pressures on the individual and the direct experience of the attitude. Attitudes that are considered important by the individual tend to be strongly related with behavior. Similarly, attitudes that are specific are more predictable of behavior. For example, if someone really likes his job, it can be predicted that he will stay with the organization for a longer period of time. Attitudes that are frequently expressed are more reliable and more accessible to the memory and hence greater predictors of behaviors. Social pressures have a strong influence on attitudes and behavior. For example, a member of a group may not agree with the group on certain issues but may go along because of the social pressures within the group. Finally, the personal experiences with people and situations affect strongly the attitude and behavior of a person. Positive experiences result in positive attitudes, and negative experiences result in negative attitudes. For example, a student who has taken a course with a professor is in a much better position to evaluate the professor as compared to someone who is not his student. The relationship between attitude and behavior is well documented. However, a debate is still going on as to whether the changes in attitudes affect the changes in behavior, or whether the changes in behavior affect the changes in attitudes. In other words, it is not clear as to which one is the cause and which one is the effect. Attitude formation. The question often arises, how are the attitudes and subsequent behaviors formed? While attitudes are basically learned over the years, some inherited characteristics do affect such attitudes. For example, physical characteristics such as the height of the person. Tall and slim people are expected to dress well and behave in a sophisticated manner. Similarly, intelligence is primarily an inherited trait, and it is related to certain behaviors. Intelligent people are considered to be much more logical, and this affects their attitude. Religion and religious beliefs can be considered as inherited, as the religion of the child is determined by the religion of his parents, and it determines some aspects of individual behavior, especially those that concern attitudes based on morals, ethics, and code of conduct. Similarly, whether a person is born a male or a female determines some stereotype traits such as aggressiveness and physical stamina. Most of the inherited traits are strengthened by learning and experiencing, while some attitudes are adopted early in life from our family values or cultural environment. Most are developed gradually over time through experiences and observations. Some of the learned characteristics responsible for attitude formation are: first, experiences. Our personal experiences with people and situations develop our attitude towards such persons and situations. Through job experience, people develop attitudes towards working conditions, salaries, supervisions, group dynamics, and so on. Similarly, interaction with other people would determine your attitude towards them. A positive interaction with a person would result in a positive attitude towards that person. Many people who have afraid of swimming or horse riding or darkness can track back this fear to some fearful or negative experiences in these areas in the past. Next, perceptual biases. Perception is the result of a complex interaction of various senses such as feelings, seeing, hearing, and so on, and plays an important part in our attitude and behavioral formation. For example, if a manager perceives a subordinate's ability as limited, he will give him limited responsibility. Similarly, we lost many good friends due to our sense perception about them. Next, observation of the other person's attitude. When we like someone, we try to emulate that person's attitude. For example, when we are impressed by someone keeping calm under stressful circumstances and we appreciate such calmness, we might try to do the same. Similarly, our attitude toward a spiritual person changes if we observe him committing what we consider a sinful act. Next, association. Our association with the group we belong to strongly influences our attitude. Our close association with a group would encourage us to be consistent with the attitude of the group. Belonging to an elite group or a religious group would determine some aspects of our attitude. Family association determines our attitudes from the very beginning. there is a high correlation between the parents and the children with respect to attitude in many specific areas. Similarly, attitudes of our peers as we grow older also influence our own attitudes. We make friends with people who share our own attitudes, interests, and preferences. Many a times, our parents object to our friendship with persons whom they deem undesirable and encourage us to make friends with those who have an outlook similar to our own. Next, personality. Personality is a set of traits and characteristics, habit patterns, and conditioned responses to certain stimuli that formulate the impression that a person makes upon others, and this impression is a function of a person's attitude. This personality may come out as warm and friendly or arrogant and aggressive. From an organizational behavior point of view, it is believed that people who are open-minded seem to work better than those who are narrow-minded. Similarly, people who are extroverts and outgoing are more likely to be successful as managers than those who are introverts. Next topic, attitude measurement. In social settings, we can judge a person's attitude easily in the sense that we either like or dislike a given attitude. However, at work, it is more difficult to measure the attitude of workers towards work. Such measurement becomes necessary for the management to predict employee behavior, which will affect the quality of work. From the viewpoint of measurement, attitudes may be defined by describing measurement systems that social psychologists use to measure attitudes. The most common and frequently used method of measuring attitude is by simply asking people about their attitudes towards various issues, people, and factors. This is accomplished by attitude surveys and questionnaires. Generally, bipolar scales are used to measure the attitudes towards a job in terms of liking it or disliking it. However, different scales have been created in order to measure the degree of such liking or disliking. One of the most commonly used ranking scale is the one which has 5 categories ranking from most favorable to most unfavorable. Typical categories and their ranks are: number 1, strongly agree; number 2, agree; number 3, neutral, undecided; number 4, disagree; number 5, strongly disagree. The standard survey for measuring the attitude of the employees generally presents them with a series of statements and questions, which also has a rating scale indicating the extent of agreement or disagreement, as stated above. Some examples of statements are: this management is very fair in dealing with employees, or my job makes the best use of my abilities, or I know what is expected of me, and so on. By totaling the responses on the customized questionnaire, the individual's attitude score can be calculated. The analysis and evaluation of these scores can then be carried out for different teams, work groups, departments, or the complete organization. The results of attitude surveys can sometimes surprise the management. Management of one of the organizations was very happy with the way things were going. Employees were actively involved in divisional decisions, and the profitability was very high, leading to the assumption that employee morale was very high. The management conducted a small attitude survey in order to confirm their thinking and belief. As a part of the survey, the employees were presented with some of the statements in order to identify their extent of agreement or disagreement. These statements included the following: first, At workplace, your opinions are given importance. Second, you are encouraged to become a leader if you are willing to do so. Next, your personal development has been discussed with you in the period of last 6 months. These answers were totally unexpected. The results of the survey indicated that disagreement to the first statement was expressed by 43% of the employees. Disagreement to the second statement was expressed by 48% of the people, and 62% employees expressed their disagreement for the third statement. Based on this survey, the management made some changes to boost the employee morale, especially giving attention to such matters that cause alienation among the employees. By using such surveys on a regular basis, the management can get a valuable feedback about the perceptions carried out by the employees with respect to their working conditions. The management can also become aware of the different potential problems that may hit the organization. The diagnosis of these problems is possible at an early stage with such surveys. Once the management is notified of these problems, they can take needful steps in order to rectify these problems, and timely actions can be taken in order to avoid any negative consequences. One of the purposes of such surveys is to determine how variables relate to each other and how changes in one variable are associated with changes in another variable. For example, if we want to find a correlation between how fairly people believe they are being paid and various work-related attitudes, such as their willingness to help co-workers, the researchers might find that the more workers feel that they are unfairly paid, the less likely they are to help their co-workers. Such studies can alert the management to take steps to create a more collegial work environment. Next topic: attitudes and productivity. There are two keyword attitudes which determine the importance of attitude-behavior relationship with respect to productivity. These are job satisfaction and organizational commitment. Equally important are the complex relationships between job satisfaction and job performance. Job satisfaction. Often we assume that a happy employee is a productive employee. To some degree, this assumption is valid. Job satisfaction is defined as a positive feeling about one's job. A high degree of job satisfaction reflects a high degree of happiness, and a high degree of happiness with the job generally results in higher dedication to work and higher productivity. A job is more than just an activity. There are different job elements that may be responsible for determining the satisfaction and dissatisfaction level of the employees. However, it may be a complex process to identify the different job elements, such as interaction with co-workers and superiors, following organizational policies and rules, meeting performance standards, and so on. It can be safely assumed that, generally speaking, people are satisfied with their jobs. This assumption is based on the observation that a dissatisfied person can always change jobs. Of course, professional people are more satisfied than routine blue-collar personnel such as factory workers. This can be due to the fact that professionals have more challenging and exciting jobs than manual workers who have routine and monotonous jobs. Management is interested in measuring job satisfaction because low job satisfaction can result in costly turnover, absenteeism, and tardiness, elements that result in poor productivity. Studies have shown that the level of overall workforce job satisfaction and organizational performance are linked. This indicates that the effectiveness of an organization increases with the satisfaction level of the employees. Therefore, the more the dissatisfied employees in an organization, lesser is the organizational effectiveness. As satisfaction is a result of satisfactory work experience, high levels of dissatisfaction help to identify organizational problems that need attention and redressal. Next topic: organizational commitment. Organizational commitment refers to an employee's involvement and dedication to the organization and identification with it. Such commitment goes beyond loyalty and requires a serious and sincere effort on the part of employees to accomplish organizational goals. Organizational commitment continues to be influenced by continuous job experiences, with factors that affect job satisfaction enhance organizational commitment such as pay relationship with superiors and co-workers, working conditions, opportunities for advancement, challenges, and so on. With the passage of time, organizational commitment becomes stronger as the workers spend more time in the environment and get to know the other workers at a more personal level. Organizational commitment leads to low absenteeism, high morale, and high productivity. Committed individuals tend to be more goal directed, which has a positive impact on productivity. Creativity and critical thinking are essential for making effective and unique decisions. The degree and depth of creativity would greatly influence the quality of the decisions and consequently the results of actions that are based upon such decisions. Creative thinking is important to bring about unique ideas, and critical thinking is necessary to criticize and test these ideas so that they are feasible and optimally beneficial. Creativity, though not tangible, is an essential ingredient of organizational growth. Without creativity, organizations would be non-dynamic entities and their employees would stagnate into nothingness. Creativity and creative ideas must be socially useful and recognized. Some ideas may be creative but so eccentric that they may not have any socially redeemable value. Accordingly, the utility and usefulness would determine the value of creativity. Creativity primarily means originality in ideas. An original idea is considered to be the one that has never occurred before. If such an idea is the outcome of some established procedure of manipulating variables, it may not be considered original. The world as we know it now would not have been possible without creative ideas put into production. The steam engine that revolutionized the world of travel was a novel application of an existing idea that steam under pressure tries to escape. We also have a much better control of the world than our ancestors had, and this has been because of discovery and inventions that seem to be based upon a strong element of originality. Advances in medical sciences have saved millions of lives and tremendously increased the average lifespan. We still have a lot of areas to cover within this world and out of it in outer space, and original ideas are being generated daily and put into practice. Next, creative process. The creative process generally follows the following broad outline. First, preparation. Preparation involves a hard and concentrated look at the problem at hand and its various parameters in order to develop a breakthrough solution. Scientists work in their labs, sometimes for many years before they get a creative idea. The general tendency of the scientist is to look at the various tentative solutions available for a problem. These tentative solutions are generally routine and known solutions and hence do not lead to new and unique outcomes. The more tentative solutions there are, the more difficult it would be to generate another different solution. It is the generation of this new solution that differentiates a creative thinker from a non-creative thinker. The non-creative thinker would be satisfied with a satisfactory and known solution. It is the creative thinker who will continue to look for a different and unique solution. Accordingly, preparation in the form of education, training, and research is an essential foundation to build creativity. Next, incubation. Incubation is a time of thought and reflection and is generally a period when the conscious attention is turned away from the problem at hand. The main idea is the observation that some creative and innovative ideas come to mind when you are not really thinking about them, a kind of result of thinking by the unconscious mind. It is something like sleeping over the issue and not thinking about it. Creative people use many different methods to provide this incubation period. They may go fishing or read a book or take a nap. This incubation period is unpredictable in timing and duration. It may take a day or many years. The main idea is that the conscious mind usually looks for familiar channels that are known, but the unconscious mind, free from the constraints of the conscious mind, is able to look at the issue from new angles or put information together into new combinations. Next, persistence. Merely providing incubation period does not necessarily result in creative breakthroughs. Sometimes persistent effort is necessary. Persistent effort would make it more likely that more and new information would be added to the decision maker's frame of reference, or a problem could be redefined that could generate new and different conclusions. This is especially true about highly creative people. According to Daniel Goleman, the picture of the exceptionally creative person shows that at its high levels, creativity involves important sacrifices. For people at the most exceptional level, creativity is a pervasive, almost compulsive preoccupation. Innovative activities dominate their lives, often to the detriment of other aspects of living. Persistence means not only total involvement in the area of issues under consideration, but also requires courage and perseverance in the face of repeated failures or criticism. Next, insight. Insight is the actual point of breakthrough achieved as a result of preparation and incubation. It is the tentative outcome of persistent efforts and thinking when the individual believes that he has found a unique solution to the problem under study. This is the result of extensive analysis of various factors and combination of factors. Even though the creative idea generally comes up suddenly and unexpectedly, it is a kind of eureka state that brings excitement where the person finds what he was looking for and which was deluding him previously. Next, verification. Now the insight or the new idea has to be tested to make sure that the idea is valid and feasible. It is a kind of a critical stage because if an idea is put into practice without measuring its potential utility in a significant manner, then it may turn out to be the wrong decision. A scientist must verify his hypothesis through critical analysis or through laboratory procedures, whichever is necessary, and if the hypothesis cannot be proven, The scientist must formulate alternate hypotheses. Next topic, enhancing creativity. Organizations interested in maintaining and enhancing creativity recognize that excessive disciplines, excessive rigidity in structure, and too much control inhibit creativity. Generally speaking, creativity needs freedom from constraints and especially from time pressures. Even though in certain situations people do develop breakthroughs under time constraints, creative people are intrinsically motivated and they tend to do their best within free and supportive environment. Intrinsic motivation comes into play when we are truly aware of our interest. In general, there are two techniques of creativity enhancement that have been studied carefully. These techniques are brainstorming and synaptics. First, brainstorming. Brainstorming is a technique for stimulating imaginative and novel ideas. It involves a group of people, usually between 5 and 10, sitting around a table in a classroom setting, generating ideas in the form of free association. This generates a variety of ideas and solutions. The leader of the group briefly defines the problem and encourages the participants to suggest as many innovative, extreme, and even wild ideas as possible and not allowed to discourage or criticize the ideas of others, no matter how far fetched such ideas may be. The idea of brainstorming is to create a climate in which people feel free to suggest whatever comes into their mind without caring for its feasibility. This encourages free willing, and one idea sometimes leads to another idea. This free association and unrestricted thinking may generate some new idea and a unique solution that may not have been thought of before. Next, synaptics. Creativity assists in developing a variety of alternatives. It is basically the generation of new ideas or using all ideas in a new way from unsuspecting angles. Synaptic Synaptics approach assists in generating such ideas. As Baron puts it, synaptics in operation depends heavily on two mechanisms, making the strands familiar and making the familiar strands. The first of these is a search for similarity, so that when confronted with a new problem, we ask ourselves whether it is not an old problem. Had we but the wit to see it, seeing even partial resemblances may lead to the application of familiar methods in solving the new problem. Making the familiar strands is a way of shedding preconceptions and perceptual habits. Innocence of visions, a certain naivete and ingenuousness characterize the creative individual. If these qualities can be cultivated, the novelty of invention and problem solution should be increased. Habits. Actions that we tend to repeat regularly and unconsciously can be termed as habits. Every professional needs to have good work habits if he wishes to succeed in life. Some of the good work habits are as follows. First, make daily task list. In this competitive world, professionals are expected to be multitasking. Due to multitasking, they tend to forget some of their tasks and end up being scolded by their bosses. One of the mantra for professional life is don't trust your memory. A professional should pen down all the tasks that he is expected to perform so that he does not skip any of his tasks. This habit not only saves the person from his boss rebukes but also help him organize his work well. Next, keep your desk and your desktop organized. It is an important work habit that each professional should have. An unorganized desk not only makes the work unorganized but also makes it time consuming. Similarly, many professionals now work on computers and do not organize their desktop well. Most of them tend to save all their files on the desktop and are not able to find the relevant files when they need to. It is important to organize the desktop by making some folders and keeping the files properly named in their respective folders. Next, reach office 10 minutes before official hours. It is important to reach office before official time so that you can organize all your work before the day starts. If a person reaches office exactly on time, they are not able to organize what they need to do throughout the day. Thus, it is important to cultivate this habit. Next, organize your email regularly. A professional who gets a number of emails on regular basis should learn to organize their emails well. They should not delay replying to the emails. Another way to organize emails is to make folders client-wise or priority-wise and move the emails to their respective folders. Skills. Professionals need some skills to succeed in their field. Some of these skills are presentation skills, communication skills, social skills, and time management. Let us study these skills in detail. Number 1. Presentation skills. These skills are vital for professionals and the organization to which they belong. Many skills are required to make the presentation effective. Given below are some of the skills. First, conceptual skills. They refer to the imaginative ability of an individual to develop a mental picture of a system or situation, or in other words, the ability to visualize and create a design of an idea, object, event, or person. Once the conceptual design is ready, an individual can go about creating a physical design, a blueprint, on a sheet of paper using verbal and non-verbal methods, diagrams, models, graphs, etc. Next, analytical skills. They refer to the ability of an individual to break a situation into components and examine the interrelationships of the components as well as the attributes of each component for their functional significance. For example, if you want to analyze a motivation system, the important components of the system are the motivator and his authority, motives of the individual to be motivated, the incentives that can satisfy the motives, and the environment in which the persons are functioning. Next, technical skills. They refer to the ability of the individuals to understand the science knowledge which he applies to his function. It is the ability to use tools and techniques to perform productively and effectively. Thus, it is the knowledge of the job-related disciplines. For example, human resource HR managers should possess knowledge of behavioral sciences, human resource practices of the firms, tools and techniques employed by HR managers, and recent developments and challenges to HR managers. Next is research skills. Once the topic of presentation is identified or given to you, you should collect information from different sources, analyze the information, and develop a research paper. Well-researched papers will provide accurate and new information and arouse the interest of audience. Research skills are made up of an inquisitive attitude to look for data, patience in searching data, analytical competencies to analyze and interpret data, and integrating, synthesizing abilities to compose the ideas and data into meaningful paper. Next, effective speaking skills. As presentations are delivered only under relatively public circumstances, they require a few special communication techniques. A presentation is a one-time event. The audience may have a chance to listen to the recorded speech. They miss the opportunity of exchanging their views and appreciating the speaker. Therefore, a professional must make sure that each member of the audience hears what you say and remembers it. To do so, you must capture their attention immediately and keep them interested. Effective speaking requires voice control, good presence of mind, and ability to use body language. Number 2. Social skills. They refer to the ability of individuals to understand the characteristics and expectations of people and mingle with them to create pleasant experiences and durable interpersonal relationships or networks. Good communication abilities, etiquette, empathy, and ethical attitudes are important dimensions of social skills. Number 3. Communication skills. They refer to the ability of an individual to exchange ideas, facts, and opinions with others to create a mutual understanding. Communication skills require ability in three dimensions: written, oral, and non-verbal. A professional should learn to write clearly and in an organized way. The words should be meaningful. Sentences should be short and grammatically correct, and the paragraphs should be emphatic and consistent. In addition to writing skills, a professional should also be good at conveying his ideas and opinions orally to other people in the organization. Nonverbal communication blends with speech to carry a part of the message, to augment, reinforce, and clarify that message. One has to learn the art of using nonverbal signals like punctuality, proper appearance, facial expressions, eye contact, posture, vocal characteristics, gestures, and so on. Number 4. Time management. A professional should learn to manage his time successfully. It is one of the most important skills if a person is in a profession where he would need to meet deadline. Thus, every professional should learn to manage his time successfully.